Donald Trump's administration has been one disaster after another, but honestly, I don't think anything tops the sheer humiliation of Usha and JD Vance's trip to Greenland. It started off bad, it got worse, and now it's ending in a way so embarrassing it's almost unbelievable. We're gonna break down everything from the moment they landed to JD Vance's train wreck press conference and the brutal confrontation that left him scrambling. But before we dive in, do me a quick favor, hit that like button, and if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel. It helps a ton and really means a lot. Now let's rewind to where this all started. Check out this clip from Vance right here.
Hey guys, it's JD Vance, the Vice President, and you know there was so much excitement around Usha's visit to Greenland this Friday that I decided that I didn't want her to have all that fun by herself, and so I'm going to join her. I'm going to visit some of our guardians in the Space Force on the northwest coast of Greenland and also just check out what's going on with the security there of Greenland. As you know, it's really important. A lot of other countries have threatened Greenland, have threatened to use its territories and its waterways to threaten the United States, to threaten Canada, and of course to threaten the people of Greenland. So we're going to check out how things are going there. And I say that speaking for President Trump, we want to reinvigorate the security of the people of Greenland because we think it's important to protecting the security of the entire world.
From the very start, this Usha Vance trip was a total disaster. The whole thing was weird, right down to the bizarre video she posted. She sounded like AI, completely unnatural. And then there's JD Vance, who somehow manages to be just as uncharismatic. But here's the real kicker. Nobody wanted them there. They made it crystal clear, and they're still making it clear, which honestly isn't shocking at all when you hear what JD Vance had to say at his Greenland press conference. Check out this clip.
This territory, Greenland, really matters for the security of the United States. It's extremely vulnerable right now. And if the people of Greenland were willing to partner with the United States, and I think that they ultimately will partner with the United States, we could make them much more secure. We could do a lot more protection, and I think they'd fare a lot better economically as well. This has to happen. And the reason it has to happen, I hate to say it, is because our friends in Denmark have not done their job in keeping this area safe. They just haven't done it. It's very simple. For all of our friends in the American media who attack the administration for pointing out the obvious, what is the alternative?
The argument JD Vance, and honestly the entire MAGA crowd, keeps making about Greenland being crucial for national security is just laughable. First off, if they actually cared about national security, they wouldn't be using Signal to discuss war plans. They wouldn't be handing out jobs to people like Pete Hegseth, Mike Waltz, and Tulsi Gabbard. And let's talk about strategy for a second. If the argument is that Greenland is important because of its location in countering Russia and China, then what about Ukraine? You know, the country that's literally right next to Russia. Wouldn't supporting Ukraine be far more strategic? It's unreal. The mental gymnastics they're doing to justify this nonsense is exhausting, and it gets even worse when you hear JD's attempt to defend Pete Hegseth. Check out this clip.
And now the same American media that covered for the Biden administration after the untimely death and the unnecessary death of 13 brave Americans is really interested in forcing the President of the United States to fire someone because of a signal chat. That is not honest behavior from the American media. And if you think you're going to force the President of the United States to fire anybody, you've got another thing coming. President Trump has said it on Monday, on Tuesday, on Wednesday, on Thursday, and I'm the Vice President saying it here on Friday. We are standing behind our entire national security team.
It always comes back to this, doesn't it? The media's fault, and somehow also Joe Biden's fault. Meanwhile, Pete Hegseth is out here leaking war plans, literally texting classified information, putting American troops and all of us in harm's way. But nope, let's blame the media instead. It's beyond ridiculous, especially because we can see the texts. We have the chats. It's all right there in black and white, and yet, when JD Vance was confronted about this, about his own attack on Donald Trump's intelligence, he had nothing. Watch this.
Did you express your concerns to the president that you were opposed to the Houthi strike? And also, what did you mean when you asked, or when you said in that thread that the president wasn't aware that his directions for Yemen were inconsistent with his message on Europe?
Well, I didn't quite say that. I think that's a slight bit misunderstanding of what I said, but we've talked, of course, in the American media about Signalgate, as I called it, for the past week. And here's what I told the president and the entire national security team is that, yes, It is in the interest of the United States of America to preserve navigation. Yes, it is in the interest of the United States to kill terrorists who are preventing navigation in the Red Sea, but we got to make sure that we do it right.
JD Vance said it himself in those texts. No matter how much he tries to deny it now, he thinks Donald Trump is stupid. He thought Trump was wrong, but now that it's all public, he's running as far away from it as possible. It's just a complete disaster, and JD Vance cannot escape it. Maybe this Greenland trip was their attempt to distract from that? If so, I have no idea why they thought embarrassing themselves even further was the right move. And speaking of embarrassment, take a look at what happened when JD and Usha Vance arrived in Greenland. Now, when a US president, vice president, or even a random member of Congress lands in a foreign nation, especially an ally, there's usually a big reception. The red carpet, officials, representatives, something. But JD Vance? He landed and no one was there. Just a couple of US troops because it was one of our own bases, but zero officials despite what they were promised. It was literally just, oh, we're here. Oh, okay, bye? Just so funny watching this whole trip amount to absolutely nothing. Want to tweak anything or does this work? They hyped this trip so much. Osha even had her little sizzle reel going about attending a dog sled race. And this is what they got? A half-hearted handshake, a bad press conference, and zero real welcome. These people are jokes. And look, I have no sympathy for Usha Vance. None. Why would anyone? She's getting humiliated over and over again. Because this is what happens when you align yourself with these people. You will get screwed over. You will get thrown under the bus. You might even end up in jail. And if not, well, your money's probably disappearing soon anyway. That's what always happens to people who attach themselves to Donald Trump. Honestly, I'm almost glad Usha got roped into this. Things have been too quiet for her. And if you're out here defending your husband, who latches onto and defends Trump? Yeah. You're not a good person. I'm sure in a past life, Usha was liberal, maybe even a decent person, but she gave all that up. For this? For no one to greet you in Greenland? Was this embarrassment really worth it? I don't get these people. I really don't, and they just keep making us look bad. Frankly, they shouldn't have their jobs, which is exactly what Eric Swalwell was saying about Pete Hegseth on MSNBC.
Congressman, it's good to have you here. You formerly were on the Intelligence Committee.
Yeah, 8 years.
This sort of... My fears here, there's both how much they screwed up here, there's the lack of the accountability, and then there's just like the general competence of the national security team.
Yeah, and the lying, right? They're compounding the mistake with just lying to us and gaslighting us. And most Americans, from you and I to Dave Portnoy at Barstool Sports,
right,
are saying, like, stop gaslighting me. Like, we see what you did. Just tell us how this is not going to happen again.
It's kind of scary to me to have this guy running DOD, and you would think maybe this moment might shake something loose.
Well, it's also a green light now to our enemies, right? They're like, oh, these are the guys running your national security? Okay, like, we could probably hit you. I thought the best question, frankly, was from Jimmy Gomez. It was on the second day, and he's one of the junior members of the Intel Committee, and so he went near the end. And he said, were any of you aware as to whether Pete Hegseth had been drinking before he leaked classified information? Which is a completely fair question. Like, who cares, like, if anyone in America drinks, except the guy who promised he would stop drinking because he had an acknowledged problem when he was going to do this job. So the question of did he keep his promise was completely legitimate considering all the baggage he brought to the job.
Stopping attacks is so important at so many levels. First, the sort of moral level and the harm and safety of the American people, but also what happens after that.
That's right.
You know, if 9/11 never happened, the world's a very different place. If October 7th never happened, the world's... And so the people that are now charged with that kind of thing, having this level of competence is pretty worrying.
And it's also a deterrent, right? Like, stopping an attack shows the enemy that you're watching and you're up for what it takes to stop them. And these guys are not up for it. And I also have not heard from any of them that they're not going to do this in the